if this game heading to esports, is that something that you're going to pursue, you think?
Yeah. So for sure, for me, I made the conscious decision to move towards PvP with the ultimate goal of hoping to guide Pokemon Go to an esport.
Super effective, it gets the knockout, and just Kieng is your champion. Wow.
The game itself, when it works and it's functioning, is a lot of fun, right? And I think a lot of people can see how fun and exciting the matches can be. It just obviously has to work.
Welcome back for another amazing episode of the Third Shield Pokemon Go PvP podcast. Guys, I have an amazing guest for you, and that guest is Kieng IV. And if you don't know who he is, guys, I'm gonna tell you, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows who Kieng is because he is one of the OGs of Pokemon Go PvP, and he is basically the first official champion of Pokemon Go hosted by Niantic. And he became a champion by basically defeating Poke AK, and we're gonna cut in just a few clips of the actual video because I just want to showcase how amazing that tournament was from the looks of it, and how involved people were and how moved the audience were when these two amazing battlers were battling out there. And guys, I just cannot wait to pick Kieng's brain. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I think he's one of the only players who is able to throw an absolute random team together that he never seen before and somehow still able to find a win con against somebody who is using a team he have been using before. So Kieng, without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
All right, thank you Daniel for having me. Welcome everyone to the podcast. I'm really excited to be joining here, talking about everything PvP, and sharing some of my experiences, and hoping to help some new and old battlers improve.
Oh yeah, that is 100% a goal here today, Kieng. And I'm very excited because, like I said, you are somebody that I've been looking up to for a very long time, in PvP especially. And before we even jump into any of those things that how we could improve or how we can get better and all the fun stuff, I just wanted to ask you, how did you actually get involved with Pokemon?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, like many people my age, I played the first and second generation when I was younger, and there were a lot of fun. Played on the playground and with some of my friends, but I really didn't touch Pokemon after the second generation till Pokemon Go came out. So I obviously was familiar with the franchise, watched some of the anime. Followed some of the trading card game, but really it wasn't until Pokemon Go where my interest was reunited.
So that means that really you started to learn how the actual mechanics of the game and the typings and all that works in like Pokemon Go?
I would say I knew like the basic typing already from the original games. Water beats fire, fire beats grass, dragon beats all three of those, right? Type of thing, right? So I already knew that, but some of the more like difficult ones or some like the newer typings, like I didn't realize there's a fairy typing until I came back to Pokemon Go.
I always wanted to know if somebody's such a good battler as you are and very versed in basically the game, then I wanted to know if it comes from like the original games or, from basically Pokemon Go. And it sounds like, well, it's a combination of two, but you learn more in Pokemon Go.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Pokemon Go is a huge part of my learning about the Pokemon franchise.
That's awesome. I'm the same way. I jumped into Pokemon Go, but I only jumped in because of PvP. Is that the reason you jumped in, or?
No, I was. So for me, I've been a very long time player. Mostly before PvP came out, I was mostly focusing on grinding and building a community in that aspect. And I remember and doing raid challenges and whatnot. And I remember like people used to ask me on my live stream before battling came out, when I was like catching or like doing raids, people always ask me like, what's the one feature that you would love to see come out in the game? And for me, the answer was battling, was PvP. Not so much because I was interested, but because I remember many of my friends left the game because they're like, I'll just come back when battling is ever implemented. And so I really wanted battling to come back so that my friends would return to the game. And for me, I'm not really that competitive a person. I'm more focused on building the community. When battling came out, I played a little bit with my friends and whatnot, and I wasn't really going to be too invested in it. And then there was in December before the first Silph season came out, they were running some beta tournaments to test out the system, and I went to that tournament. And actually, I think I went 5-0 in that tournament, and I posted, and then I remember people were asking me like, "Oh, how can I get better at battling?" I'm like, "I'm just getting started. I just like spent a little bit of time," and I thought this was a really great opportunity for me to help educate people on how to get better. And then the Silph metas came out, and it kind of went from there.
Oh, that's awesome. And I didn't expect anything less, by the way, for the first tournament from you. That time, so I talked to Rise to Occasion, amazing battler as well, and he told me back then why he was good at the very beginning of Go Battle League, because he knew his basics, which was basically the typings. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that was that your only advantage at that tournament, that you absolutely know the typings, or what do you think?
I think me knowing the typings and then having a good indication of energy and how much it took to get to the charge moves and analyzing some of the numbers. So like this is like before even PvP Poke was like officially launched. There maybe was like a beta version of it, right? Like imagine a world without PvP Poke. That's a crazy world. But I remember like running some of the numbers and doing some analysis on my own. And I built like some of the early spreadsheets to help like calculate the PvP IVs and whatnot. So that was like part of my advantage, was like obviously knowing the typings, like knowing the energies and counts was pretty early on, helped me get a pretty big advantage early on in the Silph meta and when GBL came out.
How did you get from when you started originally from Pokemon Go, PvP, to where you are today as far as like your skill? Like if you think back, how did you start improving your skill levels, and what did you focus on? Something? Did you pick something to improve on, or how did you go about it?
That's a really good question. I think there was like just like incrementally trying to figure out ways to improve, and it's really hard for me to pinpoint the exact moments of when this happened, right? But for me, it was like I produced a lot of content, right? So I was getting a lot of feedback in the YouTube comments, when the YouTube comments are readable, right? Like sometimes they're difficult to read. And then as well, getting feedback. So Wild Susan Boyle was my Silph coach. Really great battler from the Vancouver area. Super strong, right? And he also puts out a guide on the basics of PvP. He helped me a lot, give me a lot of feedback, and just trimming and contouring and just figuring out ways to improve based off the feedback I got from people.
Yeah. Now I wanted to actually touch base on this, but you already beat me to it. So you actually had a coach.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you still have a coach? I know you're coaching now, but do you still have a coach?
Not currently. If I were to get back into like competitive Silph, then definitely I would be reaching out to some people to. I think it's always important to figure out ways that you can improve. So for me, if I were to get back into the really hardcore competitive scene, then certainly I would be reaching out to at least people to get feedback from.
Oh yeah, for sure. There are many things that you or me personally, for me millions of things, for you a few things probably, but when I play, and I blame, let's say, the game and it was a confusion that not supposed to go through or got denied or whatever it is, or somebody snuck through something, and then Toe Tactical saw me doing that on stream, and then he writes me this long message, this is the reason why you lost.
Really?
That shows you the value.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right there.
Absolutely. There's always things that we need to improve and things that we need to be more conscious of as we're battling.
What would you recommend for people who, let's say, just starting out now in Go Battle League? They could be under level 40 or above level 40. Maybe we could help both of the genre out. But what would you tell them if they just want to jump in now and they know nothing about battling?
So if you want to just jump in now, I would say, first off, just go and battle. Just have fun, right? Don't take it too seriously, right? Kind of gauge where you are right now. So like, do a few hundred battles, right, in Go Battle League, right? do 1, 2, all 5 sets, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then once you feel like you've plateaued, then I would say figure out how much time investment you want to make. But I think the simplest thing that you can do is just start recording your battles. Start recording your battles, start analyzing, okay, I had a good lead, why did I lose this game? I had a good lead and good counter switch, how did I end up lose this game? Like, how can I make decisions differently? And then from there, if you want to analyze your battles yourself, that's great. But I also encourage you to analyze your battles with other people. Hop on the Discord, share your battles, get some feedback, and then obviously watch a lot of great content that's on Twitch and on YouTube. And then you'll see how dramatically you'll improve.
That's a very good point.
That's kind of the basics of it.
Yeah, it's a really good start to get started. And then for people, let's say who one step ahead, and they constantly hitting ace, but maybe they just keep getting stuck right under the 2500 base and they just can't get out of it. What would you say to them?
Yeah. So I did a video on like stuck in ace, and so I analyzed like 25 of someone's battles that were like constantly stuck in ace, and someone wrote in the comments at that range, like people might have, there's a whole range of things that they might need to improve, right? So for example, this person was amazing at counting. Like at ace, they were catching virtually every move possible. But the main problem for them was that they had a very questionable team composition, right? That made it very difficult. And then 2, the counting actually worked against them. So they were constantly counting versus like when the catch failed, then they were all of a sudden like really far behind. And their leading Pokemon end up also like pretty low on health. So versus just switching out right away and playing out those kind of situations there. So I think for someone stuck at ace, you just need to figure out what is it that you need to improve on. Do you need to start counting? Do you need to start switching out faster? Do you need to start recognizing typing? Do you need to figure out strategies? Do you need to improve your team? Just like try to like figure out what is the thing that's holding you back. Sometimes that's like recording your own battles and you can figure out yourself. Sometimes it's getting feedback from other people. Sometimes it's getting a coach and trying to figure out how you can break through that barrier. I think it's for me when I coach some people at a lower elo, they'll like watch some like really spicy teams on Twitch or on YouTube, and they really want to try it out. And I'm like, listen, like these people are like absolutely incredible, right? They've like gone out and done the investment and done the research, and they know how this team works. And that's nice to sometimes break the meta core, but you'll find way more consistency if you just find a team you're comfortable with, that's safe, and then learn the mechanics, and then you can try to figure out like what are the clever core breakers and whatnot, right? And this is also why I tell people for me, I don't stick with the same team, but I tell people to stick with the same team generally, just because then you can focus on, learning your matchups, learning your mechanics, learning timing, learning when to switch, learning different strategies, because those will carry on regardless of how the meta shifts.
Yeah, that's really good advice, guys. That's something that I run with. When I think FP Sticks told me that, he was like the second guest on our podcast, and he told me what you just said. And after that, I sit down, wrote it down in my notebook, and I was like, I'm gonna do that, and it worked. I think that was the first season I hit Legend. That was like season 4, I believe.
For me, I usually hit Legend through like two mechanisms. One is through these unique challenges, right? So like I started pretty much every meta with like some unique one. So I did like unique 75 Ultra Premier Classic. I usually start with like 165 unique for Great League, and then I like usually mix in like some auto rec and whatnot. Yeah, but majority of my battles up to Legend are teams recommended by my chat. So these are teams that people want to try, or some people want me to try some certain Pokemon. Sometimes they send me questionable teams, right? But these are just the ways of for me to like kind of showcase on how to utilize the team and how to play with some certain matchups.
That's absolutely amazing, because that's super hard to do. is basically the cheat to this, and it's not really a cheat, it's knowledge, I should say.
Yeah.
I just call it a cheat. But do you think the secret for this, to able to do that, even if you get a Pokemon that you know nothing about, is basically just know the actual energy gains and counts and all that kind of stuff? Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, like, they're like, oh, how do you know X move and how long it takes? And for me, I just break it down to numbers. Okay, I know Vine Whip generates 8 energy per. I know, Dark Pulse is 50 energy. So I know those counts. And then roughly for most Pokemon, because of Self and for other reasons, I know how bulky they are. So I roughly know how much a move can do. And then I kind of like try to run the simulation in my head if I'm not already familiar with it.
If this game heading to esports, is that something that you're going to pursue, you think?
Yeah. So for sure. For me, I made the conscious decision to move towards PvP with the ultimate goal of hoping to guide Pokemon Go to an esport.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So from here we are with all the issues, and this is where we want to go, esports, right? So what do you think? How long would it take us to get there? If you would absolutely have to guess, or what would they need to do in order to get there? Maybe that's easier.
So for me, I think the make it or break it moment, and this is not to be over dramatic, but the make it or break it moment is going to be Pokemon Worlds, and whether or not we can have a functioning game and a great championships. If we have and I kind of view it as like we're like at like the 1.0 version right now, and I kind of view, and we want to get to 3.0 as example, right? That's like where I think it's like where we can call ourselves an esport and it's not disputable. And I think Pokemon Worlds is like the 1.5, and if we accomplish the 1.5, I think we'll move on pretty smoothly. But I think if Pokemon Worlds is like a total flop and there's like a bunch of lag and the game doesn't work and there's like and all that stuff, then I think the future of esports would be we would basically be hitting a ceiling at that point in time. And I think it's like lots of people objectively could say that Pokemon Go PvP wouldn't be an esport, but so it all depends on Pokemon Worlds, because I don't think Pokemon Worlds will be. We'll look back on it if it does become an esport, will be like the biggest event in Pokemon Go PvP history. I think there will be bigger events if the Worlds go smoother. I thought for the longest time the only way Pokemon Go PvP could become an esport is if there's like some like wicked AR, you know how like in the trailer video, and then you have like your Pokemon battling. I thought that was the only way that could make it interesting enough to be an esport, because an esport has to be entertaining to watch, has to have an audience. And it wasn't until, I've said this story many times, but it wasn't until I went to Singapore, right? I flew to Singapore for the Safari Zone, and they held a big tournament there. It was like one of the biggest tournaments in the world at that point in time. I think it was around 100 people, and it was really exciting. And I remember, I think I was like the third seed going to the tournament, and I was battling. I went 4-0, and then I was paired up with Brandon Tan. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized it could be an esport without this cool AR stuff. Because when Brendan and I were battling, every single person was watching. And like when our battle ended, people were like so excited and like so hyped up about it, right? And that was the first time I'm like, wow, like the game itself can be entertaining enough, right? It like looks like, obviously to an outsider, like we're just tapping our screen and whatnot, but like the drama in the battle and whatnot. And that's at that point in time, I realized we don't need this like crazy AR technology stuff. The battling itself can be enough. And so at that point in time, my focus started focusing on making Pokemon Go an esport. And obviously I was the only one talking about it in that form or fashion, right? Because like there's only like a small percentage of players that were playing it, and you know the reach and audience was still pretty small. But at that point in time, I thought there was potential, and obviously Pokemon Worlds, the Invitational I thought was a great step, and then we've kind of like flip-flopped here and there, and obviously Go Battle League was a great step as well. But there's still a ways to go before we can say we officially made it as an esport objectively.
Well, let me just tell you just one last thing with the esports. Once it becomes esports, it will be probably registered on, I forgot what it's called, the website. It's Ashton Kutcher owns it with a bunch of people. It's a Unicorn Betting or something like that. you can bet on esports teams and matches and all that. And I was just thinking that Go Battle League is probably the number one thing they should focus on once it becomes esports, because one match is maximum of 5 minutes, and there are already big name players like you. So let's say if you and Toe Tactical battling it out in Go Battle League or in the tournament, and you can actually bet on it.
That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, for sure. That would definitely be an interesting mechanism to add to it. The game.
That would be crazy. All right, King. I don't want to obviously keep you up all day, but I do have 3 mini questions that fans sent in.
Sure. Go for it.
You're okay with that?
Go for it.
So we had David Tumin send in this question, and he basically what he just asked is that how do you read someone's team composition when they are not running a known team? So, I mean, I guess what he's asking is when somebody just comes in and, you know, you don't recognize the team, like, you know, the OG team, even if you still 2 Pokemon.
Yeah.
So is there like, do you like try to read? Is there? Yeah.
So I think there's a couple things that you want to try to figure out, right? Like, one, you don't know that they running an unknown team, right? So you still want to play logically, right? So like if you see a Nidoqueen lead, right, you do expect like a dark type in the back, right? Depending on the league, right? Or a dark fighter, usually Scrafty, Umbreon, Obstagoon, right? So you want to take that into consideration, right? And so you kind of make those assumptions of like, okay, there's a high probability that there's XYZ Pokemon in the back, right? And then as a switch and you gather more information, you think about, okay, what common weaknesses do they have, right? So for example, I was doing some coaching this morning. Someone was leading it's kind of crazy, but was leading a G-Fist, and then they had a Talonflame in the back, right? So I'm like, okay, they have to have like a hard Swampert answer, right? Some hard water answer, right? Because they're pretty weak to it. Could be Cresselia, could be a Trevenant, could be some other grass type. So you kind of like play that into like, what are they potentially weak to and what do they need coverage for? Obviously, someone could have like a completely random team. They could be going auto wreck or some other reason, and then can really focus on like, and if they have a completely random Pokemon and you brought in the wrong Pokemon, knowing if you knew all 3, you can't really be too fussed on that, right? Because you have to play the odds. You have to play logically, because more likely or not, they're going to be running this kind of logical line, and that's gonna like make sense given the team composition. Someone could have a totally left field team, but you can't base your play on that, right? You can't be like, okay, now I need to switch up everything and give up everything. No, like 90% of the time it's gonna end up that way, and that's the nature of Go Battle League, right? It's a blind 3 format, right? So someone could have a completely random team, but it's pretty unlikely, and it's not going to be helpful in your climb if you just focus and be obsessed over like that one team composition that was totally left field.
That was an amazing answer, and that actually answered the second question, who was asked by, I'm saying the ring absolutely wrong. It's Sete, S-E-T-E. I'm probably saying it absolutely wrong.
Okay.
But his question basically was, do you establish how you're going to play based on seeing the opponent's lead? Like, do you come up with a game plan right off the bat?
Yeah. I think it's important to like always have an established game plan and then be flexible with it, right? So like if you know that if you're like double weak to a particular Pokemon, you got to figure out like, how can I create an imbalance because they have an advantage right now, whether that's like catching a move, whether that's sacrificing a Pokemon. So sometimes like if I'm like double weak to a particular Pokemon, I might sacrifice the lead and then hope that the third Pokemon in the back can sweep it. And I'll just try to do whatever it takes to get an advantage, whether that's like a shield advantage, energy advantage, and kind of play it out that way.
That's actually a great point. I wanted to ask you this. So what you just said is you're weak, let's say in the back, so you're not going to supply, you're going to sacrifice your Pokemon. If you see the opponent is doing that let's say you're leading with Goon and he's just double shielding his, let's say, I don't know, it's a Swampert on lead or something.
Yeah.
Do you like, do you swap out to save your Goon or what do you do at that point?
I think it depends on what you think is in the back and how likely your backline is going to be able to handle it. Right, so if you really need the Obstagoon, for example, because like you have 2 flyers in the back, you think they have a Bastodon right in the back, then likely you'll need to say swap into one of those, and then you kind of like, you play it like if for example, like if you're running an ABB team, hypothetically, right? You know, where you have one Pokemon that covers the 2 back Pokemon, so you have Obscune and then 2 flyers, Talonflame and Altaria, for example, that are very weak to Bastiodon. As soon as you beat the lead, then you need to the next Pokemon come in. You play it as if you're losing the lead, and then you're going out and sacrificing one of your Pokemon to bait out their last Pokemon and hope that Obscune can then beat the back Pokemon, and then as well then the third Pokemon can beat their second Pokemon.
Very good point. Thank you for sharing that, because that's something that is super important to know. And then as far as King, what is your plan for as far as content creation? Do you plan on continuing on content creating or
that's a good question. So part of it will depend on what happens with Pokemon Worlds. We obviously haven't heard too much about it. Hopefully we'll hear about it soon, right? Because that's going to be my large focus. And, you know, the situation kind of evolves over time. I thought last year, okay, 2022 is like when I'm going to go like travel and host tournaments and maybe like not stream as much. But obviously things haven't worked out according to plan. So for right now, my goal is to make sure Pokemon Worlds is as successful as possible, and whatever I need to do to put that into place. So whether I'm creating content or streaming, or whether I'm spending my time organizing tournaments, helping out in any form or fashion, that's ultimately my goal.
So if people would want to get in touch with you or just watch your content, where would be the best way to?
So you can watch me live on Twitch at twitch.tv/KingIV, or you can follow me on Twitter or on YouTube at POGO King.
Perfect. And guys, don't worry, I'm going to link it in below. And if you're listening, you can actually watch the podcast on YouTube. And then if you're watching, you can actually listen to it on any platform. So so either way, it's in the description, all the details of King, where to find him and everything you can imagine.